Was he the person who did translate Beowulf? Did he bring Beowulf?
J.R.R. Tolkien?
I don't know.
I don't think he was the first one,
know.
but he made a translation of it, certainly.
Okay. Did he write Beowulf? Hello, everybody. I'm Cody Troyer.
And I'm Brent Gaisford.
And we are the Hugonauts. This time we are stoked to be discussing the best 10 sci-fi...
Ooh,
the best
fantasy.
10 fantasy novels, and best 10 fantasy series as voted on by you, the audience, in our survey. We are very stoked to talk about that, and we're going to have the architect of the survey, our friend Gordon, on to chat with us as well.
Yeah. So fun to talk about fantasy stuff and just think about something different. Don't forget to tune in next time. Our next episode will be about the Nebulas. The Nebula Awards will have happened. We'll tell you who won. We'll also tell you about all the other books and what you should be reading from the list. So it'll be fun.
And also come join the Discord. This is where the survey launched from, and Gordon's going to be posting the survey, I believe, as of today there. So you can come check out what people chose and what books didn't make the top 10 and what, where your favorites fell, and be part of the next survey and book clubs and all that kind of stuff. It's a fun place.
See all the undiscovered gems, which is full of great books for the reading list. So
yeah, that was another section on the survey we're not talking about, which is just a great reading list, it looks like. So, all right, let's get to it. Hey, Gordon, welcome.
Thank you. How y'all doing?
We are doing really fantastic. Thank you, as always, for putting together the survey.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. It's entertaining to see everything, all the data come in.
For sure, and fun for us to see, start to poke around the world of fantasy. Although it turns out we've already been poking. We've read some of these, thank God. But yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised to see how many singleton unique answers there were compared to the science fiction survey. You were just it got so quickly to just one entry for each book. Did that surprise you too?
I mean, given that we have the hidden gem section, I think we knew that anyone that was putting anything in there, those were likely to be single hits. But yeah, that also happened in the novel section as well. I think there's just a larger breadth of fantasy out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of it, shall we? And dare I say rank it, or per your all audience scores, we'll rank it.
So we're going to go from 10 to 1. We're going to tell you the 10th most popular series and novel, and then 9, and count both lists up. Should we start with series or novels?
I think we should start with novels. I think we should go novels, then series.
Okay, let's do it. So what's the 10th most popular novel?
The 10th most popular novel is Gordon's novel. Gordon, you wanna tell us about The Way of Kings?
Yeah, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. It's the first novel in his Stormlight Archive series. It's set on the planet of Roshar, where there's these intense periodic thunderstorms that sweep across the country and across the planet, actually, to the point where the flora and fauna have evolved to, they've adapted to this intense weather phenomena. It's also what powers the magic on this world. The storm comes by and it leaves behind energy and basically these little crystals, and that is ultimately used for both the kind of steampunk-esque technology and ultimately magic. And in the first novel, it follows two main characters. You've got Kaladin, who's this man who's been put into slavery, and across the course of the novel, he is striving to help as many people as he can, even in that dire situation. And then there's a young woman named Shallan who goes to this woman named Jasna, who's this intellectual, and she strives to become an apprentice for her, but secretly she actually just wants to steal an artifact that she has. And then a bunch of things happen. It's pretty fun.
Okay, cool. And this is one that neither Brent nor I have read. We have not gone into any Brandon Sanderson, so we're excited to check it out. And it seems like everyone agrees that he belongs on this top list. And
this won't be his only appearance. We'll say.
Yeah. Everyone is always talking about his magic system and how impressive it is. Do you agree with that, Gordon?
Yeah, he tends to make very hard magic systems. They've got very defined rules, but he uses them in ways where like the characters can come up with like unique ways of using the magic to overcome a situation, rather than magic like a soft magic system where you can just do it because I need it to happen. And both of those have their place in fantasy, but it is really fun the way that he goes about it to make a structured system that the reader can also kind of try to figure out how they would try to manipulate the magic to achieve goals.
Interesting. So yeah, that crossover point of like hard fantasy, soft sci-fi. Where
I like that. Sounds kind of like MacGyvery. You know what's available to you, but you can still like apply it in a novel way.
It does sound like that, for sure. Brett, let's do number 10 for the novels. For series. Brent, what is number 10 of our series?
For sure, one of the sci-fi goats is here too. Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea cycle. And I'll just tell you about the first book a little bit. So Ged was the youngest sorcerer in Earthsea, but in his youth, he was the reckless sparrowhawk. In his hunger for power and knowledge, he tampered with long-held secrets and loosed a terrible shadow upon the world. This is the tumultuous tale of his testing, how he mastered the mighty words of power, tamed an ancient dragon, and crossed death's threshold to restore the balance. I have not read any Earthsea books.
I've read The Wizard of Earthsea. I'm pretty sure I've read the Tombs of Atuan, but that's probably been about 20 years.
Okay. So you're the only one who's read all of them.
No, I've not read all of them.
I forget. Oh, except, right. Okay.
I think we should just leave it and say, like, I trust Ursula.
Yeah,
Everything I've ever read she's written is great. These are pretty high on my list, but this is one that I think about reading with my kids, because I've heard it's like Harry Potter, but sort of the OG. And so that sounds like a fun thing to experience with kids. So we'll see. We'll see if I pick it up myself, or if I wait to read it to a little one.
That's a good idea.
Sure.
Did you like them, Gordon?
They're also shorter novels. I think they're like, I think most of them are under 200 pages.
Oh.
Yeah, no, the two that I've read, I remember enjoying, but I don't know why I didn't continue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Everyone else seems to like them. And I think, Brent, you have a good plan. Maybe I'll do the same. Number 9 on the novels list, we have Babel by R.F. Kuang, which is a very recent novel, 2022, won the Locust and Nebula. We reviewed it a couple years on that Nebula episode. Brent and I both loved it. It is a kind of steampunkish, but not really. It's just Victorian era British Empire, kind of close to real history, but reimagined to where there's a magic system that inscribing silver with certain words in certain combinations creates the mechanism to make technologies, to make carriages run, to make elevators function, that kind of thing within that Victorian technology setting. And it follows a boy named Robin who is orphaned in Canton in China, and brought to London to study at Oxford by maybe his father, and he wasn't really orphaned. And he's brought up to study at the prestigious Babel College, which teaches and works on language and translation to make things work. And as the novel progresses, you see how the cultures that the British Empire has subsumed and colonized have more powerful language because there's more rich translation there, and the people who are from those cultures can harness it better. And it ultimately becomes a book that's about really the idea of revolution against power structures requiring violence, and it's a ton about language. It's a really interesting novel about when fantasy is at its best, providing a framework for actual humanity and how we live, but in a fantastical world. So I loved Babel.
For sure. Does anybody know if R.F. Kuang, I saw they had just written a new book. Are they writing other stuff in the Babel? Is Babel going to be part of a series, or was it truly standalone?
I'm not sure. It's standalone for sure, as far as, if you want to read it, in my opinion, but it did have a kind of an ending that could have led to more.
Oh, so maybe we'll see.
Someone will have to let us know on the Discord or in the comments.
Yeah, if you've heard about a sequel coming out, please do let us know.
Hey, yes, please. And Gordon, why don't you tell us about number 9 in the series list?
Yeah, we've got the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So this is basically the flagship grimdark fantasy that's out there. I think it's the one that it's attributed to the most. I suppose you could also think like the Black Company. But the series follows effectively 3 main characters. They're all kind of like morally gray. And what I think is the most impressive about it is Abercrombie manages to make all 3 of them somewhat likable, even though they're not like great people. Particularly, there's a man who had like gone to war and was tortured, and he comes back and ends up becoming a torturer for the country. And he's horribly disfigured, in a lot of pain, and is doing really terrible things to other people. But at the same time, he's like really intelligent, and you somehow get compassion even reading the series as it goes. I think mainly because Abercrombie also layers in like a decent amount of humor to lighten it up a little bit. The other 2 main characters is like a barbarian named Logan Ninefingers, and he's just extremely brutal, although he doesn't always remember. And there's a nobleman who is pretty gifted in dueling, but he's also kind of lazy. He basically just likes to drink and womanize and doesn't really apply himself. But that changes as the story goes, as the first novel goes. I've only read the first one. Grimdark fantasy is interesting, but not really quite my cup of tea, so I didn't continue.
Gotcha.
This is the only one on the list that I had never even, of both lists, that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah, me too.
I've also never heard Grimdark. How would you...
What's Grimdark?
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it is looking at more depraved kind of scenarios in more detail than other fantasy might do. Like that, it doesn't fade to black as quickly, I guess you could say.
Okay. Is the Island of Dr. Moreau, like, I guess that's sort of sci-fi, but is that like grimdark-ish?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of like grafting animals in that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably think of it that way, sure.
I think that's a really good like overall description. Doesn't fade to black as quickly. It's very evocative.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, well, both Brett and I'll have to check that one out as we move to, this is so many, and interleaving them is number 8 of the novels, which is mine. You're going to get me twice in a row, everyone. Number 8 for the novels is Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn, which is about a unicorn in a forest who discovers that she's the last of her kind, and ventures out into a very cruel world in search of what happened to the rest of the unicorns. And it's weirdly, there is a children's movie, which I saw when I was a kid and kind of disturbed me then, and I've since rewatched. The art is amazing. One of those kind of late 80s, maybe 70s even, animation pieces that's just really pretty. But it is really an adult novel, and kind of just an allegory about mortality and greed, and like the compliance of greed trickling down to others. And it's a really creepy, weird fantasy realm. Cool book, interesting choice, I thought, for a children's movie. Gordon, I know you've read it too. What do you think about them making it into the kids movie?
I mean, I thought it was fine. Watership Down, I think is or the Secret of Nim
True.
is certainly much more traumatizing, I think, than the Last Unicorn.
That's my profile pic on Discord is Nicodemus from The Secret of Nim because he's so creepy. Great pick. That's true. Yeah, so that's Last Unicorn. And I was, I guess, kind of surprised to see that people rank it so highly, but
people love
cool.
that book. I see it talked about online a lot, and I had always assumed that it was a kid's book, given that unicorn was in the title. But you talking about it actually has made me think it's bumped it like way up my list because I've tended to, I see it talked about all the time, but I'm always like, ugh, the unicorn book. That's not for me. I'm a boy. But anyway, okay, I need to read The Last Unicorn.
Yeah. Check that out, and also check out, because I don't think you've gotten into number 8 on our series list, which is one of my all-time favorites. I ranked it very, very highly on my list, which is the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman, which is a fantastical sort of steampunk multiple universes thing going on, and it reimagines the existence and impact of like a real Judeo-Christian God, and kind of literalizes biblical ideas, I would say. And it centers around the adventures of a young girl, Lyra, whose father is an Oxford professor of physics, and her mother, they are divorced, is kind of a calculating and somewhat cruel-seeming woman who is very wealthy and has ties to the church, which has a lot more power in their world. But you explore a lot of dimensions and speaking animals. They all have like a familiar that's part of their body that shares a soul with them. That's a different animal type that cements into a certain animal once they reach puberty. It's an incredible series. Also, have not checked out the show yet, weirdly, but heard good things about the show as well. And it just, I loved reading it as a kid, and I reread it as an adult and also loved it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I have not reread it. I read it as a kid, really liked him.
Oh, you did read it? Okay.
Yeah, well, I read the first 3, but I think there's more books now.
There's another series. There's another series. I think but I have not. I only read the first one of that, The Book of Dust, and I did like that too. But just like His Dark Materials has a special place in my heart. I think Pullman did something truly fabulous with ideas for our world that have an impact on our world, and putting them in a truly fantastical realm. Did you like it, Gordon?
I enjoyed it. I did not read them as a kid, so I read them as an adult, and I could tell that they're well written for children. So I didn't. I could appreciate them for what they were, but I didn't have like this connection that you would have like with nostalgia.
For sure. Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, that makes sense. The first book where you're like learning about the demons. I don't know how to pronounce their animal familiars. The first book while you're like waiting for the main characters to find, for them to like hit the whatever puberty where their animal like becomes one animal. It's like so. It was so. I remember it being so exciting at the time. But yeah, that's like such a thing for children. I don't know. It's like a really young coming of age story.
Right.
So yeah,
of course. Yeah, and it centers around 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-olds. But it is interesting about the nostalgia factor being so large, I don't know why in fantasy it seems to be more prevalent than sci-fi, at least for me. There aren't really that many sci-fi novels that we've discussed that are YA, and then Ender's Game comes to mind, obviously, but that are like things that I grew up with that I still have a strong emotional connection to, like a lot of these fantasy novels. So I don't know, maybe that's a genre divide, or maybe it was just maybe I just lost my sense of wonder, and all I want to read about are machine intelligences now.
That's dark, but maybe I hope not. Okay. Shall we move to the next book on the list?
Yes, please.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have to look at which number it is.
Number 7 on the novels.
Yeah, 7th best fantasy novel is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a pretty recent book in the last 10 years. This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land long familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. I love this book so deeply. I also kind of don't want to say that much more about it. The plot is really interesting. And then also, Jemisin does something extraordinarily, I think, risky with the narrative structure that I think works in this book and pays off hugely. Yeah, I love it so much. And I love the rest of the series, which maybe we'll talk about later in the episode. But yeah, I don't know. Did you guys like this one too?
The risk did not pay off that well for me. I think mainly because I grew up reading like Choose Your Own Adventure, and also I've written LARPs. So the specific viewpoint that I think you're talking about just kind of like took me out of the novel every single time. I did like the novel, but I enjoyed her Great Cities novel better.
Really? You're the first person I've ever heard say that. Interesting. Well, good. I'm so glad you loved that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I also love fifth season. I loved everything you said. It's great. Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think you stopped at a good point because the mystery is palpable. All right, Gordon, can you take us to number 7 on our series list? Here we go again.
I think, yeah. And we got another Brandon Sanderson, this time with Mistborn. Now, if you're interested in delving into all of the novels that Sanderson has, this is probably the good jumping point. The first era trilogy is very solid. It's got like a coming of age story. You're following a young girl named Guin who gets brought into like a kind of like a thieves guild. They set out to like steal from like the final empire and become revolutionaries in the process. The magic system is probably the hardest magic system that Sanderson has written. Like the rules are extremely regimented, but it's also just very interesting how it goes about, and the way that the like mentor figure guides Vin, who's like the reader point of view character. It's kind of like a natural way to learn the magic system as it goes.
So the Stormlight Archives and Mistborn are like somehow connected, right? He's doing some stuff where he's writing like meta books that like tie these universes together. Is that right?
Yes. So it's kind of, he calls it the Cosmere. So each of his like major novels are set on a planet. And so you could think of like there's a universe and each of these planets are in the same universe. And it's not super important. He writes each series, at least thus far, that you can read them separately and you'll understand what's going on. However, if you read more, there'll be like little Easter eggs that he threads throughout different novels that you can pick up on. Now, the Way of Kings is probably where like a lot of the Cosmere stuff is going to be more and more important to know about. But Mistborn Era 1, it wouldn't be a concern at all.
Okay. Well, and I had a question too, but I'm going to save it for spoilers later down the road because even more Sanderson. So thanks for Mistborn, Gordon. And I'm going to ask you to also tell us about number 6 on our novels list, which is
Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. So this is I would think that most people would consider that the first 3 novels in A Song of Ice and Fire are his strongest. And this one in particular, The Storm of Swords, number 3, is considerably strong. It ties together a bunch of plot lines and threads that he's been layering in from the beginning, and they come to a head in this novel in exciting ways. He does a really good job with political machinations, getting you to understand characters, even the characters that you originally probably loved to hate. get viewpoints in this novel and manage to convince a considerable number of people not to hate them as much.
Yeah, I was surprised. So this is, I think, the only, let me quickly check, but I think this is true. Yeah, this is the only book that made it on the like best individual novels list. That is not the first book in its series. I thought that's really interesting because I've read the first, I'm forgetting the name now, but I've read the first Ice and Fire book. Okay, great. I've read Game of Thrones. And I really liked it quite a lot, although I guess it was so long, so that's probably why I stopped. But yeah, I don't know. This is making me think I should keep going because it was really good. And if it's getting better, then, you know.
Yeah, and I think you described that well, like why this one would land from the whole series. And I'm not at all surprised to see that on the list, frankly. Brent, you want to tell us about number 6? Another unsurprising one?
For sure. The 6th best series of fantasy novels, according to the Hugonauts collectively, is Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. I think similarly to his work materials, at least for Cody and I, we were like exactly the demographic for these books. Like when the first Harry Potter book came out, I was Harry Potter's age. I think I was 8. And so these hit me like super hard by the time the later books were coming out. And they grow, she writes them such that should I summarize these? They're about wizards. Everyone knows Harry Potter. I'm not doing it.
Go ahead.
Anyway, by the later books, they do get they're never adult, but they turn into like YA novels from children's novels. And that was fun to go through as they happened. And like the later ones, I've never read those later books that are so long. Like I read them all in one sitting. I would get it and then stay up like all night and read the book. And it, like, I've never done that I maybe did that with Ender's Game the first time I read it. But anyway, it's very rare. They're very good. I haven't tried to read it as an adult. I don't know if I'm going to. I don't know. Have either of y'all? Actually, Gordon, I'm really curious to hear because I think you're slightly older than Cody and us. Sorry.
No, I think that's pretty sure I am.
But how did Harry Potter hit for you as a slightly older person as those were coming out?
So it was actually my mom was reading them, and so I'm the oldest of 5, and my younger siblings were reading the novels, and my mom was reading them, and she was really happy about them, and so it ended up convincing both me and the oldest of my sisters to also try reading them, and we ended up basically reading them as a family, ultimately.
Oh, that's so fun.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with it.
That's fun that you have a family story about it too. Like my mom read a couple of them to us while we were on these long car drives, road trips to Montana when I was growing up. So I have that memory. And then I remember my sister was reading them at camp with her other counselors, and they were reading them to each other. So there's a lot of, cultural moments associated with this series as well, of course. I'm interested to see if it lasts, into the future, as you said, Brent. Like
we'll see.
It came out.
J.K. Rowling's certainly trying her best to whatever. She's making controversy at such an incredible rate. So we'll see. Anyway.
That's a good point. All right. Well, let's move to number 5s, shall we? And the number 5 novel belongs to me, in the sense that I'm going to talk about it right now. And this one was a surprise to me. It is Piranesi or Piranesi. I never understood how to pronounce it, and I believe the audiobook narrator was British, so I still don't know how to pronounce it. By Susanna Clarke. It came out in 2020. So I was kind of surprised to see something so recent on this list, but I did love this novel. It's a mystery right from the start. I don't want to say too much about it because the mystery is kind of its whole point, but this character, Piranesi, where the story is from their point of view, first person, and he lives in this weird decaying Greco-Roman building structure that has cool art and lots of hallways, and some of it is coming apart, and on the bottom level there's the sea, and the tides ebb and flow in and out, and there's only 15 people in the world, but the people aren't really people, and the mystery just builds and then coalesces toward the end of the novel. Really inventive. I loved it. So I'm not bummed to see it on the list. I was just surprised it's something so recent and kind of shorter and one-off. I think it's one of the best novels on this list for just like a good, fairly quick fantasy read versus committing to 20,000 pages of a big series or something. Did you guys read it? I know you did, Gordon.
Yes. We read it for my book club, and we ended up voting it for our favorite book of that year. It was fantastic.
Nice. I keep hearing good things about this one. I think this is I have a lot of reading to do from this list, but I think this is the one I'm most excited about. I mean, short, one-off, and so good. Like, those are nice
It's the most
things.
accessible from this list, I think, by far.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I can take a break from. I'm currently addicted to Lois McMaster Bujold, but I can take a break I can slip.
Yeah, I'm addicted to Ian M. Banks right now, so I understand. Just doing all the culture. Anyways, we digress, and Gordon has another one for us at number 5.
All right, it's another Sanderson. This time with the Stormlight
Here we
Archive.
This is series.
This is the series.
Fifth
yes.
best series. Yes.
So this is intended to be his like magnum opus, like everything that he's building in that entire Cosmere will like funnel to this specific series. And he's breaking it up into 2 5-book arcs. So he just finished part 1 of a 10-book series with the 5th book that was released in December of last year. So it continues.
Cardinal opposite of Piranesi.
What's that?
It's exact opposite of Piranesi.
Yeah, I mean, considering that each book is about, I don't know, 5 times longer than Piranesi. It's complicated, but the characters, there's going to be characters that you're going to love. He's made a bunch of interesting ones, and also deals with like some mental health, because he hasn't explicitly stated it, but it really seems like a lot of the characters that end up developing magic powers have some like mental trauma that they're also dealing with. And I think he's handling that fairly well. Like, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but it doesn't seem like it seems like he's handling that appropriately. And I find it interesting. The world is really unique. And there's a bunch of different like superhero kind of powers that you get to experience as you're reading it.
The way that you describe Sanderson just makes me want to read him so badly now, because it sounds like he's also, which is not always the case in genre fiction, as we know, a great writer. If he's making you love all these characters and he's effectively creating more depth and more humanity in the writing, as well as like a good magic system that's kind of show don't tell. Like, I mean, sign me up. But I did have my question from earlier, which is, phrase I've seen everywhere on the internet. I would like you to explain to us what a Sanderlanche is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in a lot of his novels, there's just a lot of slow build up to like the culminating event, at which point a bunch of things happen all at once. So like the last fifth of a novel just is like jam packed with action. It seems fairly typical of most of his work. Not that there's action that is going on throughout the rest of the novel, but it is more evenly paced. And then that last like 15-20% it's hard to put the novel down because there's just something continually happening.
Thank you for describing that to me, because I keep seeing that in reference to him, and I'm like, what is this? And I'm excited to read some Sanderson.
Where would you start? Based on your descriptions, it sounds like you'd recommend people start, and by people I mean me, start with Mistborn rather than Clash of Kings. Is that right?
Yes, I would say Mistborn is the most accessible. His first novel was Elantris, which I think is pretty good. It is really regimentally structured, with like 3 point of view characters that it goes like ABC, ABC, ABC. So if you end up not liking one of the characters, it's like every time you're about to finish a chapter, you know that one's coming up next. You're like, oh, okay. But I'd say Mistborn is very solid.
Okay. Sweet.
Cool. Well, thank you. And let's move on to number 4 on the novels list, which is a Brent one. And here it is, everybody.
That's with that enthusiastic tee up. Okay, Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, fourth best novel. So good. I mean, what is there to say about Lord of the Rings? So many things. I feel similarly to Harry Potter, though. Like, do I need to describe this? It's about like
No, you're good.
an epic quest to destroy the root of all evil. And I feel like Tolkien is like the Bible of genre fiction. Like, he invented so much stuff that everybody uses, particularly in fantasy. But frankly, science fiction too. It's the hero's journey. I don't know. It's everything. It's so good. I love them incredibly deeply. It's definitely my personal favorite fantasy thing. I've read it once. My parents read it to me once when I was a kid. Then I read it again in high school. I hope read it at least like 2 or 3 more times in my life. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, another
the
one.
Movies are
like,
so good. Also, finally, we have, for like so long there were never good movies. Now we have great Tolkien movies. Although I wish they would stop. The Hobbit book movies were so mediocre, and the Rings of Power on Amazon is not even mediocre. Anyway, let's just stick to the original Jackson 3.
Yeah. I also like all the animated, the Warner Brothers and the
the
Ralph
old ones?
Bakshi ones. Yeah, those are fun. They have songs in them. I still got the "When There's a Whip, There's a Way" song stuck in my head. So let me know if
when there's a whip,
any of you,
there's a way.
When there's a whip, there's a way. It's like when they're marching through Mordor and Sam and Frodo are on their way to destroy the ring, like very late in Return of the King, and they run across the 2 armies before they get to Mount Doom. Anyways, I guarantee you somebody knows what I'm talking about out there. I know at least
I love that
my
there's a
sister
cheery
does.
song about getting whipped and worked to death.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
the soldiers. It's them. It's the like soldiers marching. Anyways,
wow.
yeah, those, not surprised to see Fellowship of the Ring on this list, obviously. And I agree with you. And I think, to say he's invented it, maybe the Bible of like bridging mythology into more creative genre fiction, because it's really all pulled from mythology. He was an excellent scholar too, who also translated the most popular version of Beowulf.
Yeah, he spent his like whole career fighting with Beowulf, right?
Yeah.
I just saw a really great
Was
quote
he the person who did translate Beowulf? Did he bring Beowulf to
I don't
modernity?
know.
I don't think it was the first
don't
one,
know.
but he made a translation of it, certainly.
Okay. Did he write Beowulf? All right. Let's move on to number 4 in the series list, which is Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin. So, Brent talked about the 5th season, the first one earlier, so I won't go too long, but Essun, the main character, has many more adventures, lots of themes that N.K. Jemisin brings in. I thought like a really tightly well-woven way of talking about race and difference and homogeny and the problems that humanity grapples with that. And the mysteries continue to mount, and then it's resolved at the end of the 3rd novel in a way that I found fantastic. And we see lots of cool new places and meet cool new characters. So I loved the whole series.
What's your favorite book of the 3?
Oh, probably the 5th season. But the 3rd one, maybe also. I feel like there's a little bit of a bias towards the later books just because they finish everything. But I liked all 3 of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought the first was the best just because it like brought us to the world. And yeah, I love the 3rd one also. I think the 2nd one was definitely my least favorite. Still good, but least favorite.
Okay. Well, who wants to tell us about the number 3? Okay, sorry. Before we get into top 3, let's do an aside real quick. Instead of our normal recommended books section, I thought it'd be fun if we all had one book. I told Gordon he could have a book and a series that is their favorite that did not make the top 10 but was high on their personal list. So Gordon, why don't you kick us off?
All right, so my pair, well, one thing we haven't really talked about is Portal Fantasy, which is basically my favorite fantasy. I really enjoy epic fantasy, but everyone knows what that is. But for Portal Fantasy, that's when someone from like this world gets transported into a fantasy world and experiences it.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so fun. And my favorite standalone novel for fantasy is Pawn's Dream by Eric S. Nyland. I found this book when I was in high school, and I read it once a year the entire time I was at school. I loved it that much. And in this one, there's the man, Roland Pritchard. He's like a convenience store clerk. He thinks that like the lucid dreams that he has at night are just dreams. But eventually he finds out that no, he actually lives in two different planes of existence. And when he goes to sleep in one world, he wakes up in the other. And after this is like revealed to him, his like two personalities start merging, and he's able to use magic and gets like pulled into the like political machinations of the dreaming families. But it's such a fun novel, and it's not that long. It's only like 350 pages.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then,
well, that's it. Yeah. What's your series?
The series is The Last Rune by Mark Anthony. This is out, I think, by your way, Cody. It's set in like Colorado.
Okay.
And then, I think the planet that they end up transporting to is called Eld, which is like a high fantasy. Gods exist and are like living among them. There's wizards and witches that have like different kinds of magics. And you follow two people there. One is Travis Wilder, who is a like barkeep, and Grace Beckett, who is a like emergency room doctor. And things happen in Colorado which are wild and crazy, and they end up getting transported to this other world and have to adapt. And the series is 6 books long and a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. I thanks for bringing my attention to that term portal fantasy, because I do also love that trope. I didn't realize there was a whole subgenre named after it, but that makes sense. And those both sound really fun.
My
Brent,
pick is a portal. I also didn't know the phrase portal fantasy, but my pick is portal fantasy. Yeah. Chronicles of Narnia. If I have to pick a particular book, I'll pick, I mean, the first one, I guess, but I'll pick the third one to be fun. Yeah, Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Yeah, it's got Reepicheep, the fighting mouse who fights with his rapier. They're just so fun. It's such a great, a great fall. Stepping into another world is just such a fun idea. I love those books dearly, dearly, dearly. So anyway, yeah, that's my pick.
I agree. I also love Chronicles of Narnia. My pick is a little bit not portal, but it is kind of historical fantasy fiction. And it is Baudolino by Umberto Eco, who's a writer who kind of got to stay in lit because he's such a good writer, and because he wrote a while ago. So it doesn't like enter the genre fiction conversations that much. Maybe y'all have heard of Name of the Rose, the Jesuit priest, Labyrinth, Sherlock Holmes myth, also great. But Baudolino is about the Third Crusade, or is it the second? I think it's the Third Crusade, with Frederick Barbarossa, Holy Roman Emperor of Germany. And it's this character, Baudolino, who gets involved with Barbarossa's court, and it brings in the history of the letter to Prester John, which was a real letter that Marco Polo wrote about the East when he was exploring out there, and brought back to Europe and made the European kings excited about these magical lands to the East, and kind of reinvents the idea of why maybe Barbarossa went on the crusade, and then it becomes magical later and it becomes a murder mystery. It's like one of the greatest novels I've ever read. So I had to say something about it. But shall we move to the top 3? Let's start with novels again and go to Gordon for number 3 on that list.
All right, we have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And it's a beautiful novel. I mean, I think that's what most people say when they talk about the novel itself, is how poetic the writing itself is. We follow there's a man named Quoth, who is starting to tell the story of his life to the chronicler, who goes around, collects like basically biographies of famous people. And he's sought out this one particular person who's known as the King Killer. and asks for his story. And the chronicler believes that this should only take a day because it's never taken more than that. Quoth says it'll take 3. And so this is day 1 of Quoth telling his life story. You get to see his like growth into young adulthood, goes to a magical school. He
Classic.
yeah, he had like confronts some bullies. He's really smart, very witty. At the same time, he's telling his own story. So whether or not he's embellishing any of this is up to you to decide.
Yeah, there's some good unreliable narrative stuff happening for sure. Yeah,
That sounds really interesting. Like
have
an
you
old
not
classic.
read this one, Cody?
No, I haven't. It just sounds like a cool classic, like frame tale from mythology, like Sinbad or something, but with also a magic school. So it's good.
Yeah, the writing, the closest I can think of to another book would be Cavalier and Clay. Like it's just a joy to read the words.
Okay. That's an interesting comparison. I love that novel.
I feel like the Hugonauts collectively here were very discerning with putting this. So there's 2 books out in the King Killer Chronicles, and at this point, Rothfuss has been working on the 3rd book for like 15 or 20 years or something, and people are starting to say the same thing that they are about George R.R. Martin with Game of Thrones. Like maybe it'll never finish.
I have faith.
So anyway, I'm glad you think he's going to get there. I hope he does. I mean, I read the first 2. I loved them, kept them on my shelf for years, and then I gave them away because I was like, well, the 3rd book's not coming, so. Anyway.
Well, that's cool. You've read them. That I didn't expect that.
They're good.
And okay, well, how about number 3 in the series list from also Gordon?
All right, that's the Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin.
Here we go.
Yeah, I said it right this time.
Oh.
So it's a very expansive series. Obviously, it was the inspiration for the HBO series Game of Thrones. There's a lot of political intrigue, a lot of very complex characters, a lot of surprising deaths. And everything just moves very well. His plotting and pacing is excellent. And I look forward to when he gets the Winds of Winter out.
Which isn't even the last one, right? He's got 2 books to finish the series,
it's supposed to be Winds of Winter and I think A Dream of Spring.
Okay.
But yeah, I have faith. I'm not going to pressure the guy. If he gets them done, great. If he doesn't, like I've enjoyed the story as it is so far. I don't think he'll leave it hanging. I don't think that'll be the legacy.
Okay.
I hope not. He's getting up there. Come on, George. Well, we believe in you, buddy.
Hey, I, for one, am really enjoying Elden Ring, which George R.R. Martin wrote with Miyazaki. So we got that too. All right. To move to number 2, here's a double for me. This is going to be Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. This is number 2 in novels. Super surprised it ended up here, but it was my number 1, so I get to talk about it. China Miéville is probably my favorite genre fiction author. He's so imaginative. He has talked about fantasy as a idea. His idea about fantasy is, why are people just writing about other humans and humanoid species doing mostly human things when you can imagine anything and write about anything? And his books, Perdido Street Station especially, is wildly creative. I couldn't even put it in a box. I guess I could say it's kind of steampunk. It's book 1 in the series about New Crobazon, which is a city that this book centers in. It's this grimy, mucky place where the rules of physics are a little bit different, and it's very kind of adult in nature and themes. There's violence and sex and everything, and just wildly imaginative species who all live together, and really well thought out and built this world. And he goes a million places in this novel as you get as the mystery and the adventure and the characters just keep adding and adding and adding and getting better, and finally culminates in one of the best endings of any novels I've ever experienced. So strange. And I think Perdido Street Station probably top all time in novels in general for me. It's somewhere in that list.
I mean, it's so good. I'm so glad you told me about it. I loved it too. Just the feeling of that world is like very visceral. It feels like a place I've been, when obviously I have not.
Right. It feels like a place you've been, but also it's like completely alien and imagined, and like the cactus people and the beetlehead people and the crow people, like there's just so many weird things all flying together, and he just makes it work in a beautiful way. Did you like it, Gordon?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
You read it last year too.
Like second favorite novel that you guys have gotten me to read.
Okay. Yeah. High praise. Well, then let's move to number 2, which I will also try to keep brief because I could start crying if I talk about this too long. This is number 2 in the series section, Dark Tower. This series means a lot to me. Also something I read when I was growing up, when I was a teenager. Very strong emotional impact for me, and I love it. Dark Tower follows Roland of Gilead, who Gilead is a fallen nation somewhere in the past. Sorry, this is a Stephen King series. Gilead is a fallen nation that's kind of an Arthurian round table type empire.
But with revolvers.
But with Clint Eastwood is basically Roland, and they use revolvers and guns, and Roland can shoot these guns at this incredible speed.
So goodly.
So good. Yeah, he does his reloading trick and he shoots the gun so good. But essentially you follow Roland on his quest for the Dark Tower, which is the nexus of all interconnected universes.
What's the point in the first book? Do you remember I remember the opening line and the closing line, the gunslinger walked and the man in black followed, or maybe reversed. But why are they walking around? He's
following the man in black because he's trying to find the Dark Tower. I won't say much more than that.
Okay. All right.
And throughout the series, we go through all sorts of different fantasy realms and universes, and also 1950s through 2000s New York and America, Maine as well.
Stephen King writes himself into the series in a really cool way.
Yeah, I loved that. A lot of people didn't, but it's a divisive moment. And also, it's kind of like the center of Stephen King's literary universe, much like you were talking about with Brandon Sanderson. A lot of his previous characters are in the Dark Tower series. His novels are referenced a ton. It's really intricate and spans all of the genres. There's sci-fi, there's fantasy, there's everything about it. One of my absolute favorites. So I'm glad it made it so far up the list.
Yeah. This is one you told me about. I mean, many, many, many years ago in high school, but yeah, I'm sure you're glad you did.
How about you, Gordon?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I didn't read it until I was an adult. But I enjoyed it, especially when Father Callahan comes back, because Salem's Lot's my favorite Stephen King novel.
Yes.
And then I liked the drawing of 3 because, portal fantasy, quite literally.
Right. Yep. Yeah, he does everything. So yeah, check out Dark Tower if you haven't. Yeah. And Brent, why don't you...
Last thing about Dark Tower, just thinking about, we spend so much time talking about books, and we reference often, like, they become touch points in our lives. Like if things are happening in your life that are like good when you're reading a book, you can really like it. If you read it when your hormones are good and you're a teenager, you really like it. Anyway, but the Dark Tower has gotten tinged with like sadness for me because there's in college, this guy in my fraternity named Sergio, who I like loved and hung out with all the time, such a great guy. And one of the things we bonded over early in our relationship is he had painted a beer pong table all like Dark Tower themed. And it had Roland's quote about like, you don't aim with your eye. Cody, do you remember it? It's like something.
You aim with your heart.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And then Sergio died last year. And so like they're like tied together in my mind, I think forever now. So like, I think the older you get, like the more things become both. Like, sadness accumulates as your life goes on. That's part of being alive. But yeah, this is one for me that's like, it's become bittersweet. I just think it's sad, but it's like interesting. Anyway, and I want to talk about Sergio too, because I loved him and miss him.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So it goes.
So it goes. Well, do you want to tell us about the number ones?
Yes, I do. Okay, so best novel is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. So this is his sort of YA book. I don't know if you could read Lord of the Rings without reading The Hobbit, but you shouldn't. You should read The Hobbit first, preferably when you're about 14, maybe a little younger. But it's such a great standalone. It's very fun. It brings you into the world. yeah, I don't know. Bilbo's is like great. I think part of the reason Lord of the Rings is so good is because hobbits are just fundamentally so likable. Like, how do you not like the guys who like walk around barefoot with hairy feet who constantly are trying to think about snacks? Like, they're just likable guys, and saving the world for some reason. So yeah, I love The Hobbit so much. I don't know. When did you guys read this one in your lives?
Probably around the same time.
Yeah, I think it was actually a required reading in 6th grade. So I read it.
Nice.
Then. And I loved it.
Perfect. Yeah. It is. I think you're right that it is like a good starting point and good for younger readers, Brent. And not that Lord of the Rings isn't, but I agree with you. And I think hobbits are good characters because they're pure. Because they're unrealistically pure. That's why they're so fun.
Yeah, well, and the kind of like bad stuff that they do is like they steal crops from Father
It's
Maggot
so childish.
to eat them. They're just hungry guys. Anyway, yeah.
Well, then it'll be no surprise to anybody that the #1 series is
Lord of the Rings, as it should be. I would have quit the show if the rest of the Hugonauts had voted for something else. How dare you all? But no, I mean, it's unsurprising. I mean, I feel like any list, it's like making a, I don't know.
It's foundational.
It's
It's like the wellspring from which all came, as you were talking about with Fellowship of the Ring. Like it makes sense for it to arrive at #1, I think.
Yeah. Which ones? Okay, so let's try to do something a little bit different. Do y'all have a favorite book from the trilogy?
I would probably say The Fellowship. I did not so I read The Hobbit in 6th grade, and then I found out there was a sequel. And so I immediately tried reading The Lord of the Rings, and I ended up like throwing the book because in The Two Towers, he basically skipped over the one part that I really wanted to read, which was the Battle of Isengard. And I was like, you're going to spend all this time describing Éomer's shield, and you give me a 1-paragraph description of these really cool Ents fighting at Isengard, and I was like, "You're such an." So
I think
I love the series now, but when I first read it, I was actually fairly angry that I did not get to see the Ents battle.
I could see that. See that. I liked Return of the King the best. I think just because of ending bias. I liked seeing it all wrap up. But I'm going to throw another curveball your way, which is I like the movies a lot better than the books.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love them. I've seen them all 7 million times. I could watch them 7 million more.
Yeah. I really like them too. I feel like they cut the right stuff. Like they made great movies from this material.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll admit when I'm reading the books, like I kind of skip over the songs, especially Fellowship of the Ring has a lot of like, I don't know. I mean, the first chapter is famously like 40 pages of like preparing for a dinner party, right?
Right.
So anyway, there's some things that maybe I don't read with the closest attention. But anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this list. Thank you to those of you who voted and contributed. We had so many people participate, and it's always so fun to do these. Gordon, thank you so much for putting these together.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
We really appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we do. And just want to, shout out to come join the Discord and see the survey results as Gordon puts them together. We also have the Undiscovered Gems section, which is just basically a immaculate reading list by everybody, one book at a time, books that in sci-fi or fantasy that they thought were the best that they'd read. So that's a fun section too. That'll be on Discord. So we'll see you there hopefully. And Gordon, thanks so much again, and we will see you soon.
Bye.